All right, so we're on part 2. We might even have to go on to a part 3 of using Google Classroom for assignments and feedback and things like that. I was able to find one, open up a template that a student had worked in that I left comment feedback in the actual Drive document that was linked on Google Classroom. So, that one right here that I showed you in the previous video, that I opened up, and actually they resolved all these comments, which was why they weren't showing up. But if I click on this comments button, you can see all of the comments and who resolved what comment and why. So, and you can even reopen the comments. Some students, will just click resolved, 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 and you will have to go back in and say, no, it is not resolved. Go back and fix it again for the 5 millionth time. And generally, too, if they do hit this resolve button, you will get an email notification saying that either that they've commented back to you or that it was resolved. At least I have. So that's what that looks like. So that's one way to leave feedback. Another way is actually as you grade. So I'm going to go back to something from way at the beginning of the school year. Now, one thing that I have heard a lot of people ask about is, how do you do like rubric grading or things like that? I generally will post the rubric for them somewhere on Google Classroom, and I have one further up here. And I will print out that rubric and then actually, grade the rubric by hand, write comments by hand, and then, based on what I'm seeing on the screen, and then they will get the paper rubric back. I am kind of experimenting with using Google Forms as a way to give feedback and then just submitting it to them through Google Classroom, or Google Drive. And I'm actually having students do that. So we're doing student to student feedback as opposed to teacher to student feedback. So here is, a CSI activity that they did at the very beginning of the year. And you can see, I left when I graded them, and I graded here, and you can actually change, how you're grading, what point value and things like that. But I left some private comments as I turned things back in. So they got your data tables, wonderful. So they did get back a paper rubric from me, but some of them, had hit turn in before their project was really done. So I would also leave them private comments, and then I would just click this little box again here and then return their assignment to them to fix it. And I've done that with a lot of students. I mean, it obviously depends on what kind of teacher you are, if you let students redo work or resubmit work after getting feedback. But I prefer to do that. Obviously, it's a lot more work, but I would rather have students do the job correctly. At some point. So that is another way that I leave feedback. So I can do it directly in the document. I can do it after they submit it. I have the option to, when I hit return, or when I, grade it and I return it, I can leave comments, like mass comments to everybody I've clicked on, or just a private comment to the one particular student. And like I said, I still use a paper rubric or checklist or whatever it is that I might be using to grade for that particular assignment or assessment at times. But I am, like I said, kind of experimenting with, if I can get back here, using Google Forms. So Google Forms is another app, and if you don't know how to get to Google Forms, it is in that, Google Drive triangle, and you can just hit new, more, and then forms, and I'll just create it in here. And then you can title your form, you can do multiple choice. And this is where too, if you want to do more, you want to do an assessment online that you can grade online using another app, you can do that here. Like I said, I don't use forms for this purpose. I'm actually using it for the purpose of, as a rubric. So I actually did a linear scale for one of my rubrics, and I'll show you what that looks like, and then kind of explain what a 1 looked like versus a 4. And now I'm having students give feedback on that. So the most recent project that students have completed is this diorama of different biomes. And they had access to this feedback form. So this is what it looked like. And what they're doing is they're kind of doing this carousel activity where they're going around to different biome or dioramas of different biomes in their class. They have to go to at least 3, and they have to open up this feedback rubric. And what will happen is, as they're going around with the Chromebooks, and as they're filling out this feedback rubric and they're submitting it to me, it's going into a Google Sheet. And I'll see if I can open that up and show you what that looks like. And what I'll do then is I will kind of sort all the students by name, and then I will average out the scores that students give them. I'll kind of check it against what I would have scored them as, and then I'll return their 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 feedback to them through Google Drive. So you can write the student's name. I have a place for them to write their name. And then, I went through and explained, like, this is what a 4 would look like versus this is what a 1 would look like. And then you have to decide, if they're not quite a 4, they're not quite a 1, where would they fall in the middle? And you can do the same thing. You can actually open up students. There's apps where you can do like a side-by-side view of things in Google Classroom. And your form, I have this app here, it's called Classroom Split, where I can see something on Google Classroom, and then I could even use this if I wanted to grade it myself online. I could do it online this way as well. So that's what that looks like. So students go through, and I have them just submit. They have to do at least one kind yet constructive comment explaining why they gave them the score they gave them. I will say, once you explain this, and students have done student feedback a few different times, they get really good at it, and they do take it very seriously. I haven't really had to talk to any students. Mostly I just say, if you're dishonest or you're giving somebody a bad grade because you don't like them, then I will take points off of your grade and put it on their grade. So that usually circumvents any issues. But yeah, just go through, and then I have students submit it. And what I can do then is, in Google Drive, excuse me. Where I have created that form, there will also be a Google Sheet. We can find it down here someplace. There should be a Google Sheet. Oh, here we go. So this is the document, and then if I go back, responses, here we go. So here are the responses, and I can see individual responses, or I can see a summary of student responses. So obviously, this student did not follow directions, and they gave me the student's first name. I can print them out. I can delete responses, and I believe this is where I can open a spreadsheet. So this has kind of changed over time, actually, since the last time I've been in here. So if I want to create a spreadsheet of the responses from students, I can create a new one. And there it lists all of the students that have done responses, and then the student names. I'm looking here, and one thing I'm going to have to remind students of is to do first and last names. But you can see here they have very great comments showing up, some of them better than others. And then, like I said, I'll go back and look at the scores and average them out. So that is one way that you can use forms to create rubrics for either teacher to student feedback, or in this case, like I'm using, as student to student feedback, which is always nice because it kind of saves you some time. Aside from those, there are other ways that you can also leave comments. You can do class comments. You can respond to, if you do a question post, you are able to also respond to students down here through private comments. So if you do a question post and you are looking at their response, you can leave them comments there. Do you always have to leave comments on Google Classroom? Obviously not. I don't do that. You don't have to stick with one thing, but these are just some options of how you can do that. So that's how I use post assessments, templates for worksheets or projects or labs, and that's how I give feedback on Google Classroom. If you have any questions, please feel free to stop in and ask or email me. I am more than happy to help. Thank you very much for watching.